stepmother. Well, the lassie wept and moaned, but when her brother told her to do that, she thought she ought to do it, and so she leapt down into the lake. But when they came to the palace, and the king saw the loathly bride with a nose 4 ells long, and a snout 3 ells long, and a pine bush in the midst of her forehead, he was quite scared out of his wits. But the wedding was all ready both in brewing and baking, and there sat all the wedding guests waiting for the bride, and so the king couldn't help himself, but was forced to take her for better for worse. But angry he was that any one can forgive him, and so he had the brother thrown into a pit full of snakes. Well, the first Thursday evening after the wedding, about midnight, in came a lovely lady into the palace kitchen, and begged the kitchen maid, who slept there so prettily, to lend her a brush. That she got, and then she brushed her hair, and as she brushed, down dropped gold. A little dog was at her heel, and to him she said, "Run out, little Flo, and see if it will soon be day." This she said 3 times, and the third time she sent the dog. It was just about the time the dawn begins to peep. Then she had to go, but as she went she sang, "Out on you, ugly bushy bride, lying so warm by the king's left side, while I on sand and gravel sleep, and over my brother adders creep, and all without a tear. Now I come twice more, and then never again." So next morning the kitchen maid told what she had seen and heard, and the king said he'd watch himself next Thursday night in the kitchen, and see if it were true. And as soon as it got dark, out he went into the kitchen to the kitchen maid. But all he could do, and however much he rubbed his eyes and tried to keep himself awake, it was no good, for the bushy bride chaunted and sang till his eyes closed, and so when the lovely lady came, there he slept and snored. This time too, as before, she borrowed a brush and brushed her hair till the gold dropped, and sent her dog out 3 times, and as soon as it was grey dawn, away she went, singing the same words, and adding, "Now I come once more, and then never again." The third Thursday evening the king said he would watch again, and he set 2 men to hold him, one under each arm, who were to shake and jog him every time he wanted to fall asleep, and 2 men he set to watch his bushy bride. But when the night wore on, the bushy bride began to chaunt and sing, so that his eyes began to wink, and his head hung down on his shoulders. Then in came the lovely lady, and got the brush and brushed her hair till the gold dropped from it. After that she sent little Flo out again to see if it would soon be day, and this she did 3 times. The third time it began to get grey in the east. Then she sang, "Out on you, ugly bushy bride, lying so warm by the king's left side, while I on sand on gravel sleep, and over my brother adders creep, and all without a tear. Now I come back never more," she said, and went towards the door. But the 2 men who held the king under the arms clenched his hands together, and put a knife into his grasp, and so somehow or other they got him to cut her in her little finger, and drew blood. Then the true bride was freed, and the king woke up, and she told him now the whole story, and how her stepmother and sister had deceived her. So the king sent at once and took her brother out of the pit of snakes, and the adders hadn't done him the least harm, but the stepmother and her daughter were thrown into it in his stead. And now no one can tell how glad the king was to be rid of that ugly bushy bride, and to get a queen who was as lovely and bright as the day itself. So the true wedding was held, and every one talked of it over 7 kingdoms. And then the king and queen drove to church in their coach, and little Flo went inside with them too, and when the blessing was given they drove back again, and after that I saw nothing more of them. Boots and his brothers. Once on a time there was a man who had three sons, Peter, Paul, and John. John was Boots, of course, because he was the youngest. I can't say the man had anything more than these three sons, for he hadn't one penny to rub against another, and so he told his sons over and over again they must go out into the world and try to earn their bread, for there at home there was nothing to be looked for but starving to death. Now a bit off the man's cottage was the king's palace, and you must know just against the king's windows a great oak had sprung up, which was so stout and big that it took away all the light from the king's palace. The king had said that he would give many, many dollars to the man who could fell the oak, but no one was man enough for that, for as soon as ever one chip of the oak's trunk flew off, two grew in its stead. A well, too, the king had dug, which was to hold water for the whole year, for all his neighbours had wells, but he hadn't any, and that he thought a shame. So the king said he would give any one who could dig him such a well as would hold water for a whole year round, both money and goods. But no one could do it, for the king's palace lay high, high up on a hill, and they hadn't dug a few inches before they came upon the living rock. But as the king had set his heart on having these two things done, he had it given out far and wide in all the churches of his kingdom, that he who could fell the big oak in the king's courtyard, and get him a well that would hold water the whole year round, should have the princess and half the kingdom. Well, you may easily know there was many a man who came to try his luck, but for all their hacking and hewing, and all their digging and delving, it was no good. The oak got bigger and stouter at every stroke, and the rock didn't get softer either. So one day those three brothers thought they'd set off and try too, and their father hadn't a word against it, for even if they didn't get the princess and half the kingdom, it might happen they might get a place somewhere with a good master, and that was all he wanted. So when the brothers said they thought of going to the palace, their father said yes at once. So Peter, Paul, and Jack went off from their home. Well, they hadn't gone far before they came to a fir wood, and up along one side of it rose a steep hillside, and as they went they heard something hewing and hacking away up on the hill among the trees. "I wonder now what it is that is hewing away up yonder," said Jack. "You're always so clever with your wonderings," said Peter and Paul, both at once. "What wonder is it, pray, that a woodcutter should stand and hack upon a hillside?" "Still, I'd like to see what it is, after all," said Jack, and up he went. "Oh, if you're such a child, it will do you good to go and take a lesson," bawled out his brothers after him. But Jack didn't care for what they said. He climbed the steep hillside towards where the noise came, and when he reached the place, what do you think he saw? Why, an axe that stood there hacking and hewing all of itself at the trunk of a fir. "Good day," said Jack. "So you stand here all alone and hew, do you?" "Yes, here I've stood and hewed and hacked a long, long time, waiting for you," said the axe. "Well, here I am at last," said Jack, as he took the axe, pulled it off its haft, and stuffed both head and haft into his wallet. So when he got down again to his brothers, they began to jeer and laugh at him. "And now what funny thing was it you saw up yonder on the hillside?" they said. "Oh, it was only an axe we heard," said Jack. So when they had gone a bit farther, they came under a steep spur of rock, and up there they heard something digging and shovelling. "I wonder now," said Jack, "what it is digging and shovelling up yonder at the top of the rock." "Ah, you're always so clever with your wonderings," said Peter and Paul again. as if you never heard a word.